Hey friends, welcome back to queergravel and another episode of Gear Corner, where I would normally invite you into the corner of my garage and workshop to tell you about a piece of gear that I think you should know about, but the garage is both too hot and too messy to record in right now, so instead we are in the corner of my office, which is both tidy and air-conditioned, and today we're going to be talking about the Lumos Ultra Integrated Light Helmet and the Lumos Firefly Integrated Light System. Like all episodes of Gear Corner, today's episode is sponsored by Momentum Biking. I am super grateful for their support of this channel and all the things I do on bikes, but more about Momentum in a little while. Every episode of Gear Corner, we talk about a piece of gear that I have purchased with my own money in order to either use for myself or review for Gear Corner stuff specifically. And these are all things that I've had for at least 6 months, so I have a lot of time to really get to know the product, its pros, its cons, etc. And then I come here to tell you why I bought it, what I love about it, what I don't love about it, and if I'd buy it again. So let's dive into the Lumos. So before we get into why I bought it, let's talk a little bit more about what this is. Obviously, the Lumos Ultra, first and foremost, is a helmet. Pretty cool. The helmet, though, gets a little bit more exciting and a little bit more interesting when you realize that it comes with an integrated light system. So there is a front light as well as 2 rear lights. And these 2 rear lights allow you to, with a Bluetooth remote, use the helmet as a turn signal as well. So one of the interesting things about the Lumos system is not just that the helmet works with a turn signal, but that you can connect up to 8 of these Firefly or Firefly Minis, which is just the smaller version of these lights, together to create an entire integrated light ecosystem. I know that might sound a little high level, but let's talk about what that actually means. So not only do you have the lights on your helmet that you can run in a solid or flash pattern and also use the turn signal, any of these lights can be set to run either a solid or flashing white light for lights on the front, or solid or flashing red lights for lights on the rear, and you can also run them in a side configuration where they function solely as turn signals and flash yellow. All of these settings being controlled in the Lumos app. All in all, it's a pretty robust system, and it's something pretty interesting if you're looking for a lot of visibility when you ride. But let's dive into why I bought it in the first place. If I'm completely honest, I bought the Lumos helmet because I was advertised this helmet on social media and every time I got on my computer until I was about to lose my mind. I saw the ads for Lumos constantly, and while at first I thought it looked like a gimmick, I eventually caved and decided to try it out for myself. Now, when I first started getting advertised this helmet and the light system in particular, I was mostly doing gravel riding, which was in the daytime, out on country roads where there aren't a lot of cars. The idea of an integrated turn signal and having the extra weight on your head for long rides and all of these things did not seem appealing, and it felt really like, why? And in a lot of the ads, it was often road cyclists that they were highlighting, riding at night, and that just was nothing that I did. But as I started to ride more and more at night and more city stuff, in traffic, in dusk and dawn, even in pitch black night conditions, because cycling is the only way I get around, I realized that it might be useful to have a little bit more visibility on the bike, and the Lumos system became a little bit more intriguing. So I bought this system last August, so we're almost to a year of owning this helmet and these lights, and I specifically bought them because I knew that I was going to be riding to and from school in the early morning as the time change happened, which means I would be riding in darker and darker conditions through the winter. And I knew that I had more and more obligations happening in the evenings through the winter where I would want more visibility. So I figured I'd give it a shot. So let's chat a little bit about what I really like about the Lumos helmet and the light system. So first up, the helmet, right off the bat, it looks cool. It doesn't look like a lot of the integrated light helmets that are out there that are geared much more to a commuter vibe. Now, I don't think that commuter vibe helmets necessarily are bad, but it's just not what I prefer to wear. I want something that looks a little bit more sporty, even if it is carrying a little more weight. I don't want the big, bulky, full coverage helmet of a lot of commuter helmets. And so the Lumos definitely gets style points. It's actually one of the nicest looking helmets that I see out on the road. Second is the lights work. They work very well. It's very seamless. I have had zero issues with the lights as long as I remember to charge them. The battery life is actually pretty solid, considering I would turn this on in a flashing pattern and have at least an hour-long commute one way to school or to other things that I was doing. I only had to charge these things about once a week. And so I think generally I was getting between 6 and 8 hours of ride time with one charge. And that's pretty solid. If I don't have to continue to charge things over and over, I'm gonna be a much happier camper. And I think the other thing that is super important about this helmet to talk about is that even without using the lights or anything like that, it's still a comfortable helmet to wear, even though it has all of this integrated smart light, Bluetooth, blah, blah, blah. It's not that much heavier than my standard like road or gravel helmet. And it is actually much lighter than a lot of the other helmets that I've used that have integrated light systems. And so it's comfortable. And I think that's really the key for any integrated light helmet. It could have all of the most robust, greatest features in the world, but if the helmet itself isn't comfortable and easy to wear, then it doesn't really matter. As far as the lights themselves, they are fairly bright and they work as intended. Really no issues. The biggest thing is the charging. Now, they are fully waterproof, which if you are an all-weather commuter is actually super important and surprisingly hard to find. Many lights are water resistant, but they can't claim to be fully waterproof because of the holes and the things that cover them and blah, blah, blah. The Lumos lights are actually one solid piece with no holes. You don't plug anything in. They charge through wireless charging, and so they are fully submersible and waterproof, which is actually pretty cool. One of the other things I really like about them is the attachment. So these attachments themselves are actually very easy to take on and off. So if you have to move them from bike to bike, it's very simple. But if you're only using these on one bike, the lights themselves attach to the mounts through magnets with a nice satisfying click, and it actually makes it very easy to take the lights on and off for charging or for security if you don't want to leave them on your bike while you're out and about. And then it makes it even easier to swap these from bike to bike if you have multiple sets of these mounts, which I do and I've used, and I find it very, very handy because I use this system on multiple bikes. All in all, there's a lot to like about this system. So let's talk about what I don't love about the system. Honestly, probably my biggest complaint about the whole thing is it's just a whole bunch of things I have to charge. And I've honestly been pretty spoiled with the e-cargo bikes that I ride that all have integrated lighting. So when it comes down to it, if I'm riding one of my big bikes like my Pack Yak or my Cedo, I don't need all this. And if I don't need it, no matter how exciting and fun it might be at the beginning, I will more than likely eventually get bored of it and not end up using it that much. And I think this is where the gimmicky piece of this comes in. I do think that this whole system is kind of gimmicky. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, you don't need this much. You don't have to have lights on your helmet. You don't have to have a full integrated light system. You don't have to have Bluetooth turn signals, etc. Really, when it comes down to it, you need a rear tail light, you need a front light that is enough to allow you to see in the conditions that you are riding in, and you need a helmet that will protect your head. That's it. The Lumos Ultra and the Lumos Fireflies and the entire Lumos ecosystem go well above and beyond that. So to some extent, it's a lot of stuff that you don't actually need. But honestly, all of it works very well. And so if you want it, it's often a pretty cool thing. So like I said, one of the big downsides for me is how much I have to charge. And sometimes the lights can be a little bit finicky with their wireless charging in the little wireless charging pad that they sell for them. Also, a downside for the lights in particular is that they are expensive. Each one of these lights is 50 bucks a pop, which in the world of lights can get you a lot more light for the money. So in this instance, you're paying that extra cost for its versatility. You're paying that extra cost for the ability to map a lot of these things together. You're paying the extra cost for the Bluetooth connectivity, etc. And if those things feel valuable to you, then by all means, go for it. They work basically flawlessly. I've had no issues in the year that I've been using these. But if you're just looking to get started and you're just looking to get the bare bones basics, the Lumos system is not it, and you might want to look elsewhere to start. The other thing that might sound silly but kind of goes along with how much trouble it is to charge at times and remembering to charge everything, and then sometimes it turns on and it's not charged and it turns off, blah, 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 is that it's actually a lot of things to turn on. Again, I've been a little bit spoiled by my e-bikes with integrated lighting, and going around and turning on 4 different lights, because I have 2 up front and 2 in back to also work as the turn signals, as well as turning on my helmet, it gets to be a lot. One advantage in this space, though, is that they are connected in such a way that once they are all on, if you turn any one of them off, they all shut off. And so that's a pretty cool thing that Lumos worked out. It would be extra cool if there was a way to connect it so that when I turned on my helmet, it also turned on my front and rear lights. But I don't actually know if that's possible. I don't know anything about this stuff. So Lumos, if you're listening, that would be a cool feature. I would really like that. Save me from walking around my bike every time I get on it. But anyway, like I said, it's a little nitpicky. I do think that it's gimmicky in the sense that it's probably more than you need, but actually everything about it functions very well. Now, before we dive into whether or not I would buy this whole system again, let's hear a little bit more about our sponsor for today's video, Momentum Bicycles. Momentum Bicycles are all about getting where you need to go in style and comfort. Their wide range of e-bikes spans from cruisers to cargo bikes and everything in between. Whether you're looking for a stylish, lightweight option or a way to haul lumber home from Lowe's, Momentum's got you covered. They put the fun in functional, and they want to help you go your way. Click the links down below to check out their entire range and learn a little bit more about the bikes I love. Thank you, Momentum, for sponsoring this video. So, would I buy this whole Lumos system over again? Well, it's complicated. The helmet, I think, for me, is actually kind of a slam dunk. I like having the extra visibility at night when I remember to charge it and all that good stuff. And at the end of the day, the helmet is comfortable and safe and looks good. So for me, that feels like an absolute yes. The rest of the light system, I may be a little conflicted about. I don't regret buying it. I don't regret spending the money, even though it was a little expensive. But knowing what I know now and knowing how much I use it now a year in versus when I was using it at the beginning, I feel like some of the sparkle has faded around it and I'm less excited about it. And the turning off and the turning on and the charging and is it there, is it not there, is it on this bike, is it on that bike, has just kind of, it's taken its toll. So I'm gonna wait until the next winter season, so this upcoming fall and winter season, to see if I end up using them a lot more, because for me, lights like this really are seasonal. I don't need them when I'm riding in the daylight because the integrated lights on my bike are more than enough for daylight riding. And honestly, the turn signal function is cool, but certainly not necessary, and I don't really miss it when I don't have it. In fact, I found myself not using it a lot of the time, even when the lights were running, because I just forgot about it. We could have a whole conversation about the carification of bikes that I feel somewhat conflicted about, but that's not for this video. We'll come to that in another one. So I'm kind of a question mark on the lights themselves, although I feel like the helmet is a slam dunk. So since that answer is a little bit clear as mud, let me tell you a little bit more about who I think this system is for, and hopefully that will give you a little bit more information about whether or not you would want to purchase this stuff. Again, I don't do any of these Gear Corner things hoping that you will buy any of these products. In fact, I would prefer it if you never bought another thing again and you just used what you had and had a good time riding your bike. But different lives, different circumstances call for different pieces of gear, and so I want to do my best to give you the best information possible. So I think the Lumos system is actually for commuters, and that is it. If you are not regularly everyday commuting, the light system on the Lumos side is probably overkill for what you're doing. Now, if you are somebody like a messenger, or you are somebody who is riding every day, riding in all weather, and honestly riding in more severe conditions like dusk, dawn, in the middle of the night, etc., then actually the Lumos system is pretty cool, and the amount of visibility that it gives you on the road is pretty incredible. If though you are a gravel rider, a mountain biker, a road biker, who's just going out for the casual rides, etc., the light system is probably not for you. And I may even question whether or not you want the helmet. The helmet is great if you are doing a lot of night and evening rides, but it's not necessarily going to provide you enough light to see from, so you will always need another light. And if you're doing long endurance rides like gravel or even long road rides, it's a little bit heavier, and even though it's marginal, over time, that starts to wear on you. So I would stick to your standard gravel or road helmets. And if you're a mountain biker, you're probably not interested in this helmet anyway, because you want something with more full coverage around the back, and this just doesn't have that. And it needs to be said that all of the Lumos system is more about being seen than it is about seeing. And this is an important distinction, right? A light to see where you're going in the dark needs to be extra bright, and none of the Lumos lights really hit that mark in a sufficient way. Now, I have, in a couple occasions, when my main lights had died on my acoustic bike and I had these on, I have used them running solid to kind of light my path, and it worked, and I got home safely, but it was not an ideal situation. So this is for people who want to add a lot of visibility and a lot of communication to other drivers or other road users around you. So we're talking about people in a highly urban environment. We're talking about people who are commuting regularly, commuting in all weather, all seasons, etc. This is really who it's for. And so for me, it does make sense because I'm riding year round in all sorts of weather, but it's not gonna fit for everyone. So there you have it. The system actually works better than I anticipated, but it's definitely not for everyone. And it's not even for me all the time. But I would love to know what you think. Do you have the Lumos helmet or any of the other pieces of the Lumos system? Tell me what you love about it. Tell me what you hate about it. Drop it down in the comments below. And if you've got questions, don't forget to drop those below as well. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video if you found it helpful, and don't forget to check out Momentum Biking and all of the amazing bikes that they're offering. If I remember correctly, there are some really great sales going on a couple of their models, specifically the Voya, and I love these bikes. So go check them out. And thank you all so much for hanging in there. And until next time, ride with pride.